First time I've really tried a full figure that's not in the realistic vein. This is a character from a video war game, and the customer commissioned this to go in his war room, and he and his team of players compete with teams around the world in this particular video war game, and this is their mascot. So this is also the first time that I've tried laminating wood. So I actually purchased some boards, and first time I've really used boards or dimension lumber to make a carving, and I glued up the pieces. Mainly because this customer did not want any cracks or splits, and is quite fussy. So I thought maybe I better use kiln-dried wood. I'd like to introduce Dick Wollum, and he is an excellent animal carver and carves a variety of animals, and I think he's going to give us a real good representation of carving animals and how he goes about the process of carving them. Dick?
Thank you. This is a fall cut I carved out of a cedar root. The wings, tail, head, and stand of the bird are one piece. This is a separate piece down here. But it's all one piece, and it pretty well carved itself. You look at this root when it was first done, all I had to do was put the feathers in and a little detail. The base was finished natural with the enamel clear. The bird was finished with a white stain and then clear enamel over that. This is a pin-tailed duck. It's been carved out of pine, 3 pieces laminated together, and then painted and finished with a clear enamel finish. Black are Canadian geese, relief, carved out of pine, wood burnt to darken the geese, and then finished a clear enamel finish. Line is carved out of pine also, finished in a clear enamel, natural finish. It was carved out of 2 pieces of wood. You can see the seam through here, but with the carving the way it is, you cannot see the seam in it. This is going to be a Pegasus, also carved out of pine. It's a work in progress. I started off with a drawing, cut it out on a bandsaw, and I've been working on it for about a year now, off and on. Another work in progress. It's an old squaw duck, and it's going to be finished with a stain and a clear enamel finish. These are geese carved out of cedar root, or what they call found wood, and finished a natural finish with clear enamel. 90% of my carving I do with palm gouges that I bought back in middle 1960s. I think I paid about $15 for them. They're North Falls, and they've done a real good job for me. My carving knives are made of stainless steel kitchen paring knives. I do very little work with power tools. I get into some places like on this old squaw where I have real fine detail in the back. I may use a power tool on something like that, but most of my work is done with my cheap little knives. I'm a cheapskate. One day I may buy a good knife.
Your preparation for doing something as intricate as these ducks, for instance, what kind of planning do you do before you start carving?
Well, usually I start off, I find a picture that interests me. A magazine or a woodcarving magazine, or animal magazine, and I'll start off like on the old squall with just a couple pictures. I'll draw it out to the size I want to make it and use that for a pattern to cut this out on a bandsaw. From that on, it's just carving away the excess wood. The lion, I found that in a magazine, a small picture of it, and I enlarged it to that and used that for a pattern to cut out the lion and carve from there. Same with Pegasus here. I found a picture of it, drew it out, used it for a pattern to cut it out on the bandsaw, and styles a work in progress.
One other question that I'm curious about. If you take a small picture like the lion and you end up with one like this, you say you just draw it out, you don't have to use any
Just sketch it.
Then you're an artist.
A good pencil and a lot of eraser.
Yeah, very, very nice. So next I'd like to introduce Billy May, and he is one of those people that could have done any of these kinds of carving because he's proficient in a number of different kinds. But I've asked him specifically to talk about relief carving, and he has some fine examples, and some in progress and some complete. Billy?
We'll start out with the smaller of the two, and this is for those that don't normally do any wood carving at all. It's a matter of straight lines, and you use a V-groove on those things, and just take out the wood to just like you would with a pencil. Just make your marks as a pencil makes its marks, and just follow the lines. You get your drawing or off of the internet or out of a book, as Dick has said previously, and then just copy it onto a piece of paper. And a lot of my things, I get a smaller one and I blow it up on a computer or on a copier. Now, this is a barn with a silo in behind it and trees, and you have to take out, as I've done here on this one, you start out by getting your depth on your piece, how deep you want to go, mark those how deep you want on it, then start taking out your background first. On this one, as I showed you earlier, you take this background out here first, and then take maybe the trees next, and then the silo next. But on this one, this is my grandson and granddaughter, which I've just started. We've got a picture here. Should I show a picture? Which has been blown up from the computer, the enhancement. And the next one is one of Dick's that he's already shown of his geese that he's done. It's just about like doing a line drawing with a pencil. You just follow the pencil marks and you've pretty well got it. He's filled in, as he has said before. This one from Cambodia is one that's a little bit deeper than the ones that I've already shown and a little bit more complicated. This would be for someone that is used to relief carving, that would have to the wood would probably need to be a little harder than this because of the detail that's on it. I don't know what that wood is. What's the wood? No idea. Okay, but this one is basswood and this is basswood, and I have beveled these edges because I'm going to frame this when I get finished. Like you would a picture frame, and this one is still rough. Now the next one I'll show you is a deep relief. This is not started. This is a little shallow relief. That's just a 1/4 inch deep. That's a little bit more detailed. And this one is what they call a deep relief. Some of you, I have brought this to the Tennessee Valley Woodworkers. Most of you have already seen it. It's out of mahogany, and it's of Jack Daniel's Distillery. It's a picture that I got out of a paper and blew up, and I was told it was a father and son, and then later I found out that it was not true. But it is a deep relief, and on that, it's when you do a deep relief and you're trying to get a perspective shot in it, it distorts some of the proportions that you do. The barrel that you see is not really round. It looks round, but it's not really round in the picture, in the wood itself. There is such a thing as a piercing of a relief. It's really, it's like this, only this background would probably, some of it be taken out completely. Now you wouldn't go around the back and put in the legs and all the other. You just take out the wood here and leave it would be a pierced piece of wood. Now all of these that I've done, I've used mostly gouges. Like Dick, I don't use a lot of power carving. I found that to me it's much faster, much easier for me to take wood off with gouges and other tools. This is also a relief. Like it or not, or whatever you want to call it, anytime you take wood off of something, you're relieving it. And that is also a wood spigot, which is out of hemlock, which I would not advise anybody to use because of the tearing. And I've noticed that when you do the hemlock, that when I put lacquer on it, the whole top of the thing, the whole piece actually turned black on me, and I haven't figured out why. So I had to turn around and do the whole thing over again. Inside his mouth is still black, but that doesn't hurt it, it just makes it better so you can see it better.
Now I'd like to introduce Bob Lawrence, another one of our expert carvers, and as usual, he carves in many different mediums. I've asked him to talk about caricature carving, but before he does that, in looking at his toolbox here, he's got some great examples of some of the kinds of carving that we've already talked about. And Bob, to start out with, could you tell us about your box and what you've done on each of the sides?
I'd like to. This is just a standard relief carving, sort of shallow because I didn't have much depth to the piece of wood. It's only a ½ inch. And then the other side is the pierced relief carving, where I filled in and put a piece of felt in the background to give it a little background. And then the third side is a sort of a freehand chip carving, where you make sort of an outline of whatever you want. And then the top is carving in the round, sort of a little aquatic scene with frogs and fish and turtles and a mouse coming out. But I would like to talk about carving in the round or caricature carving and the kind of things you get started with and go with. I get most of my ideas from books or magazines, and they'll give you a pattern and sort of some steps to follow to do the carving. Now here's one of a shepherd that goes in a nativity scene, and you can see they give you a pattern and then they give you a paint chart kind of there. What I do is copy the pattern, either scanning it into a computer or taking it and getting a copy made. And I just take that copy and glue it onto a piece of wood, both the side view and the front view. Now this is kind of stuck together and probably fall apart, but take a bandsaw and go around the one side. Of course that loses two of your sides and you have to get those back on. I use double-sided tape. You can actually go in and nail it back in, anything to stick it in if you want to. And then bandsaw around the side profile. And when you do that, pull them off, and lo and behold, with about a day's work, you have him carved out, and about another half a day you can have a painted finished product. If you want to do it a little bit easier, and you get in, when I get into more complicated figures, I will go to a rough out, which a lot of professional carvers have these made, they will make a carving and then send it to a duplicator. And they will duplicate the carving down to a certain roughness and give you a photograph to go with it, kind of follow. And again, you can turn out a nice product. You don't have to worry too much then about doing it this way, about proportions or stance, and you can get figures that have a little more motion to them. Your figures out of patterns like this tend to be kind of solid and don't have much character to them, if you will. They don't have much motion, no action to them. Tools I use, my primary tool is a knife. That I probably do 80 to 90% of my work with a knife. The rest of it is gouges and V-tools. They go from a fairly large gouge. Being palm gouges that you run with your hand, you can't use a very big one. You can't take a big bite out of the wood, so they tend to be rather small. And that's about it.
Bob, I have one question that interests me. Whenever I try carving with a knife, I end up cutting myself because I'm holding the wood in my hand. Are you just able to do that without cutting yourself, or do you have some means of protecting yourself?
Well, I protect myself, and I would highly suggest anyone. You need a Kevlar glove. It's very good against cuts. It will not protect you against a piercing wound. They're knit, so they're kind of open, and you can pierce with a knife point, but you can't cut with the blade. So it provides protection for most of the things that you're going to do yourself.
If I were going to carve a face in a piece of wood, this might be a range of tools that I might use. And what I'd like to do now, if we have time enough, is to carve a face. So Henry, how much time do we have left, do you think?
We have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, holy cow, I can't. That's too many tools to use in 10 minutes. So I'm going to get rid of those two. Let's see, I'll get rid of these two. I can get rid of this one. I'll get rid of this one. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and a knife. And now, there's my tools. All right, now if we've only got 10 minutes, Henry, would you help me by, when we have 9 minutes left, call out 9 minutes and 8 minutes and so on?
Yes.
So I kind of get a feel for how much time we've got left. So on your go, I'll get started. All right, so I guess my comment would be this carving is probably about as good as the amount of time I spent carving it. But really, I hope that you could say that using the carving chisels is not a difficult thing. It just takes practice. And I hope that by what we've shown today that maybe some of you will feel like I do. Whenever I see a piece of wood, it's got to draw a beckoning for me that I've got to see what's inside it. Is there an animal? Is there a face? Is there a human? And I just have to carve it. And I'm one of those people that has to carve almost every day or something isn't right. And I hope some of you can get that same feeling also.